Hi, I'm Dajour Fisher. Ever wonder what goes into an artist's contract and what the label benefits from? Well, I'm here to discuss the relationship between artists, contracts, and labels, and the payments and royalties that an artist receives. Recording contracts are legal agreements agreed between artist and label. This can vary anywhere from distribution, selling of merchandise, performance, royalties, production of recording, and so much more. Problem with big labels are the exclusivity. Major labels will usually require their artists assigned to them exclusively. They can't record with other labels without permission, and can't leave contracts just because they're unhappy. Term period usually lasts about 12 months, and after the period, record labels typically have a grace period in which they assess their artists and decide whether or not they want to renew the contract. Contracts must have an agreement, legality, consideration, which is something of value given in return for a promise or in return. It has to be legally sufficient value, bargain for exchange, and has to have contract. An artist looks to a label for assistance in advancing their careers and getting their music heard, whether it be advertising and marketing, distribution or promotion, or guidance and mentorship. The labels really help the artists understand themselves and get their music heard. Here are some separations and differences between a traditional versus a 360 deal. The problem with the 360 deal is an artist receives its 5 to 20% in royalties from album sales only after production and advance costs are recouped. An agreement that entitles a label to all revenue streams unless discussed otherwise just doesn't seem fair. Here are some of the typical contracts that artists usually lean towards: license to distribute a single album, exclusive recording agreement, and a single deal with a major label, an option for a second single. License to distribute a single album. They would receive cash or royalties after release of an album, and a label can sell the album for however long established. This allows the artist to then keep the copyrights to their music at the end of contract, as well as release music on their own and with other labels. An exclusive recording agreement is a deal that allows an artist to have an established recording agreement with the label. The problem with this is sometimes labels never release an artist's records. It's important to discuss a release commitment. Agreeing on a release agreement is the safest way to make sure labels release an artist's records. Sometimes they never make it out. A single deal with a major option for a second single. This deal typically supports the artist all around for a set period of time. Like license to distribute, this deal deals with pre-recorded albums. Labels will typically initiate deals with a contract that asks for a transfer of copyright or have the work considered work for hire. And work for hire is work created and then turned over to new ownership for a set fee. It is in the artist's best interest for them to keep the copyright to the music for as long as they can, only give it out for a short period of time, because honestly, labels' best interest is to attain the full ownership over your copyright. And once they have ownership, it is usually worded as an assignment or transfer of copyright. And some labels will ask for this for the life of copyright, which lasts for 70 years, even after the death of the creators or in perpetuity. Mick Hucknall versus Warner. Now, pop artist Mick Hucknall parted from Warner after calling his deal immoral. Warner was making over 120 million on Mick's staggering 20. Huh. Funny, right? Royalties. Now, royalties are generated through licenses of copyrighted songs. It's the primary source of payment for musicians, and royalties are split up into songwriters and performing artists. Mechanical royalties. Um, so services like Spotify and Apple Music didn't used to exist. These are services that are hybrids. They pay both performance royalties and mechanical royalties to songwriters and artists. Public performance royalties are payments made to songwriters when their music is played commercially. The copyright regulation is set so that terrestrial broadcasters pay performance royalties to songwriters but not the recording artists.
Performance rights organizations collect these royalties from music users, which then will be paid to songwriters and publishers. Other examples like Sound Exchange collect the same royalties, but only for digital performance.
Well, which is for you? That's for you to decide. Depends on where you're at in your career, how much support you have, and what you need as an artist, as a songwriter, what you're lacking. I think